Coming up next on Another View, it's time for the Another View Roundtable. Today, it's all about pop culture and race, gender, and justice. Why have artists Brad Paisley and LL Cool J caused such controversy with their new song, Accidental Racist? What is rapper Rick Ross really saying about women in his latest release? And what was the media's role in flaming racial tension in New York in the late 80s? We'll talk about the new Ken Burns documentary, The Central Park 5. Roger Chesley, Carol Pretlow, and LaVeist are here to talk about these and other topics on the Another View Roundtable. It's coming up next, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
And happy Friday afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Welcome to Another View. Glad the sun is starting to peek out from the clouds and we didn't get that awful rain that they were talking about earlier today. Now, before we get started with our roundtable, we have something special for our audience. We have a pair of tickets to give away for an evening with Maya Angelou, presented by the Norfolk Botanical Gardens at Chrysler Hall on Thursday, May 2nd at 7:30 p.m. We'll give this pair to caller number 3. Here's the number, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So call right now and caller number 3 will receive the tickets, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. And good luck. So there's lots going on in pop culture, and music is really stirring up some controversy here lately. Let's introduce our Another View Roundtable. Roger Chesley is a columnist with the Virginian-Pilot, and you can read his columns every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Hey, Roger.
Hey, Barbara. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Carol Pretlow is a professor of political science at Norfolk State University. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Barbara.
Joining us by phone is Bill Thomas, who is our resident community activist. Hey, Bill.
God bless everybody. It's a wonderful day.
We miss you here in the studio, Bill.
Absolutely.
And rounding out our panel is journalist, author, and talk show host Will LaVeist. Hey, Will.
Always a pleasure and honor.
No, listen to that very white voice.
Call me later.
And I want to give a very special hello to Winnie Deutsch. She is a senior at Hampton University, majoring in broadcast and journalism, and she is shadowing me today.
That's very nice.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So that she can see what goes on the show. So
she's got a great role model, I'd say.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, so LL Cool J and Brad Paisley kind of put their heads together and came up with a song that they probably figured may have caused some controversy, but I don't know if they expected what happened. Before we talk about it, let's listen to the song and also a little bit of their explanation as to why they did it.
Okay.
I'm just a white man coming to you from the Southland. Ain't like I can walk a mile in someone else's skin.
I'm not really sure we were going to find any answers, but it was the idea that we would ask the question.
Martin Luther King had a very interesting quote. He said, "Darkness doesn't drive out darkness, only light can. Hate doesn't drive out hate, only love can."
Right.
So what we're talking about on this song is forgiveness and compassion.
I'm proud of where if you don't trust my gold chain, not everything we've done. I'll forget the iron chain.
I'm not advising anyone to truly forget slavery, but what I am saying is forget the slavery mentality, forget the bitterness. Don't get bitter, get better. Some people take exception to some of the lyrics. I respect that. I'm sensitive to that.
Sure. But in the end, I felt like what we had on tape was something that people needed to hear.
In terms of symbols, sometimes I put a skull and crossbones on. And, my wife would get upset with me. But, I'm not a pirate. You know what I'm saying? So if my man got a Confederate flag on, I'm not going. That don't mean he's a Confederate soldier.
Okay, that don't mean he's a Confederate soldier, Roger.
You really had to start with me on this one.
Don't we always start with you?
Oh, there are certain topics I'm just not so sure that you should try to boil them down to a 3-minute, 30-second song or 4-minute song. The Holocaust, the slavery. There's certain subjects. It doesn't work, and it seems amateurish in my view. And I'm not even exactly sure why they went there. I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to achieve. And if what they're trying to achieve is understanding, maybe they should have had a nice lunch with each other and talked this through before they actually tried to put it on something that everybody else would hear.
Carol, I'm looking at your face. You're reacting.
I agree, because I think if they were very serious about resolving issues and getting views out there, it takes more than a song. And but I think I know why they did it. It's called money. And you create controversy, people buy and listen and talk about you. And so, yeah, I understand why they did it. I just think it was.
But we'll have it. I mean, people are talking about it. I mean, could that be one of the purposes?
Absolutely. And I think that, my colleagues here, again, are missing the point. I mean, it's like, first of all, they're entertainers. They're trying to use their platform to address an issue. Okay? This is what you get when you're not addressing the issue in other platforms that maybe have more time where you can get more in depth. I mean, so Roger, you say, it's a 3-minute song. So you've got a platform at the Virginian-Pilot. You have a fellow columnist over there. Mm-hmm. You all could be addressing racism in a serious way that is more extensive, that gives people more opportunity for dialogue. So when these people,
they're trying to, I would say that I am.
No, I'm saying that the two of you. I'm saying that the two of you could address racism and do it in a more extensive way. So here, these guys make an attempt to do something, they get lambasted. So you try to do something, you get lambasted. If you don't do something, you get lambasted. So this is what you get.
Serious journalists. I'm not exactly sure that they even know or understand the backlash that was going to come about from this. Maybe they did. Maybe it's all a stunt.
Hang on, let me ask Bill what he thinks. What do you think?
Oh, I have no problems with it whatsoever. I think it's a song, it's entertainment, and all my brothers and sisters, Roger, y'all just making too much of it. Give me a break. I mean, it's what two people came up with some words with a song. As Will indicated, this is for entertainment for these folks to make money. God bless them.
Try to
make something else out of it is irrelevant.
So let's see if the topic was the Holocaust, and these two entertainers had done it. I wonder what the commentary would have been then.
Well, first of all, Lisa, our producer, tells me that the song is 6 minutes long, but just saying. But
that's even worse. That's even worse then.
But I want to read something to you that Brad Paisley said. He said, Accidental Racist needed to be collaborative because I have no authority in terms of the other perspective. Now, this is Brad Paisley talking. He says, I can only speak as a white Southerner. One of the greatest moments of my songwriting life was taking him, talking about LL Cool J, for a ride around town after touring. I'm playing the song and he's banging on the dashboard and saying, this is important, I'm in. Then he wrote the entire part himself, his entire part himself. And I told him, you can say whatever you want. You want to tell me I'm crazy? Tell me I'm crazy. There's nothing off limits for you. Whatever you want to say in this song, you say it, and he did. So I
think that's just to say, well, they're just entertaining. I mean, I think that's the meaning. LL is a human being. He's lived life. They've got perspectives. Entertainers bring value. Artists bring value to society. Yes, there's a.
What'd you say, Bill?
Yes,
no, entertainers bring value. That's a bunch of liberal poppycock. These people are out trying to make some money.
These guys are artists.
They don't care about you or me.
These guys are artists. They're trying to make a point. And that's how racism works. When you try to say something in a climate where nothing is being said, you get lambasted. So I'm like, why aren't we talking seriously about the issue?
Folks are talking about racism. Anytime I write a column about race, I'll tell you all the people who call me a racist. So folks talk about racism and racial issues, And usually it's more highbrow than this.
Yeah.
Usually it's more. I almost think this is clownish. I would not be even listening to it.
There's a lot of classism going on right here. There's a lot of classism.
A lot of classism. These guys are making
Okay, wait. One at a time, y'all. It's radio. Come on now.
I don't usually
Carol.
agree with Bill, but I agree. It's about making money. They got attention. They got publicity. Right. They made money. The thing is selling. That's all they wanted. They weren't caring about exploring the nuances, because if they had been, they would say, well, let's get together and collaborate with a wider group of people, some entertainers, some politicians, some other people, and present a forum.
But wait a minute, you all. Let me ask this question. When Woody Guthrie would make songs about, life in America, when from Philadelphia, and his name just escaped me. Born in the USA. I mean, things of that stuff. Springsteen.
New Jersey, actually.
Okay,
yeah.
So they're talking about issues and about America. What's the difference? Is it because it's about racism?
It's still about money.
I don't think there's nothing wrong with America with making money off of talk about issues. So to say that it's just about money is okay. That's a given, Aaron. That's what they're in the business of. But to imply that they don't have any sensitivity and any thoughts on this and care for this at all, I think it's just terrible. And I think there's a whole lot of classism. Roger, there are people who are not reading your column, will never read your column, but have heard this song, and maybe it gave them something to think about. So in the absence of real serious dialogue with all the highbrow academics and all of this involved in it, and as I've talked about the need for anti-racism education for us to really be serious about it, I think there's nothing wrong with what these guys have done, and they should be applauded.
Okay. I don't think they should be applauded, frankly. And some of their lyrics, I think, are just silly. I mean, he's going to talk about the Confederate flag and his do-rag being equivalent? Come on now. One was used at times by the Klan when they were stringing up people who look like you and me.
They use the American flag to do that as well. Still do it today.
Okay, well, that too. I mean, it just seems, I don't think you should trivialize certain subjects.
Okay. One of our callers called in and said, please stop talking over top of each other because they're trying to hear you all's points.
They always talking over they always are talking over each other.
So let's do that. Okay, well, if the racism issue is an issue, then what about Rick Ross with You Only and No? How about that?
Very good for you.
Thank you very much. We can only play 11 seconds of the song.
Wonder why?
Because we would be off the air if we played the song. So
I die over these Reeboks. You ain't even know it. Put Molly all in her champagne. She ain't even know it. I took her home and I enjoyed that. She ain't even know it.
Okay, so let me interpret for a minute for those in our audience who may not understand, like Carol, who may not understand exactly what he is saying. He is talking about, the words were, put Molly in all her champagne. She ain't even know it. I took her home and I enjoyed that. She ain't even know it. Molly is the street name for ecstasy, which is a date rape drug. And then he goes on to describe date rape, but never says the word rape in the song. Will, you brought that to our attention. Your thoughts on it?
He knows what he's doing. I mean, a lot of that is about the marketing, it's about the attention. Even bad publicity is good publicity when it comes to getting a song done, and he knew and understood what he was doing and the potential problem.
Well, let me ask you this: so, because so many young people listen to rap across the board, is it the rapper's responsibility to make sure that their message is not something that would be detrimental to these young folks?
Absolutely not.
Go ahead, Bill.
Absolutely not. They can play whatever they want to play. If you don't have parents disciplining and in control of their children, they wouldn't even listen to it. So you have to look at where it all ends and begins. The man has a right, as long as he can, to make money, to say anything that I guess he legally could say in any kind of harsh or foul or nasty or crazy way he wants to say it, and people are stupid enough to buy it and listen to it. What other responsibility does he have? He has a responsibility to himself and his family to make money, and it appears that he's doing that. So hats off to him.
Okay, but what about some societal morality? Yes,
well,
no?
I don't
Does
like
it matter?
I don't like the misogyny in it, and I think there's too much of that in rap music. That's why I don't listen to a lot of it. He has a right to say it. We have a right to criticize it. I wish that some of these artists would stop trying to, when they're asked a direct question, are you for rape? They would just say, yeah, I am. That's what my music just said. But they won't say that. When they get called on it, they won't say that.
What he said was, in defense of his song, he said, woman, is the most precious gift known to man. It was a misunderstanding with a lyric, a misinterpretation. The term rape wasn't used. I would never use the term rape in my records. Hip hop don't condone that. The streets don't condone that. Nobody condones that. So I just wanted to reach out to all the sexy ladies, the beautiful ladies that have been reaching out to me with the misunderstanding. We don't condone rape, and I'm not with that.
Come on, that's exactly what he did in the song. And for him to say anything else, it's just a bunch of garbage, and he knows it.
It's all about marketing. I mean, the goal was already achieved. People are buzzing about it, and like I said, if it's in this culture, negative publicity is good publicity because he probably got more downloads on the song, more people hitting it, listening, talking about it than he would have otherwise.
But Carol, as a woman on the panel, what do you think?
Oh, I was appalled as I listened to the lyrics, but then some of it I couldn't discern what he was saying, like the end. I didn't know it stuff at the. I didn't know what that meant, but
so you didn't know they were talking bad about women.
I couldn't even. The diction was so poor that I couldn't discern a lot of it.
Classism is high.
It's not.
I mean, we on the high ground.
I'm being honest. I'm just being honest.
You make it sound like you're not a high ground, Will.
One at a time.
Hey, I haven't forgotten.
Okay, rapper Rocco is replacing Rick Ross's controversial lyrics on his track "You Ain't Even Know" and releasing a more radio-friendly version of the song.
There you go.
Expand, Bill.
I mean, there you go. I mean, the nonsense, the immorality, the degeneration of our society, parents not being at home to take care of their kids. I know it all gets down to that. I'm sorry for preaching this. I mean, this has gone on before. It was just done with not such a broad audience, but P.T. Barnum said a sucker's born every day. I mean, we have now degenerated to an issue, even with the other song, if Roger wants to stand on that principle, where this guy is obviously have no respect, didn't have a mother who loved him or a father who would have knocked him upside his crazy head for having those kind of thoughts and words come out of his mouth. So what we do now, change the words but still say the same thing? It's just immorality gone amok. Where's all your preachers? Where's Jesse Jackson? Where is Al Sharpton? And where's all these moralistic, liberal people? And, to me, it's just a sign of the times of how far we're off mark.
I think the lyrics are somewhat poisonous. It plays into, well, it's not so bad. If you say it's not so bad, well, what do we have to get to before something becomes bad? And what do we think of women, black women especially, who often are in these videos, if they're dressed a certain way, gyrating a certain way? Well, then, hey, aren't all black women like that? If that's what we see up on the screen, I'm just about through with some of these folks. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Then the music is pop culture, and that's what carries. Let's talk about the fact that the governor signed a bill that says all of us must have a photo ID in order to vote. Is that an issue for the African American community, for poor people, for college students,
especially for poor people? And especially for the elderly, and especially for non-whites. It is a big issue because we are the ones who are most likely not to have a photo ID. Now, you have to have the opportunity to get a photo ID.
Right, which the state says that it will make sure that it'll provide.
But I think it's really just to try to tamp down voter turnout. And most of the states that have passed these laws have been Republican-controlled legislatures and Republican governors. And it's going to take, now that this is the law, the main thing is to make sure that people know what the law is, get people to get the proper ID, and still to rail against a party that has done so poorly in some of these last few elections that they're trying to do anything they can to tamp down the other side from getting to the polls.
Well, do you think we'll ever stop fighting over voter rights?
No.
Oh no, because voting is so crucial to the ability to change the balance of power, to shift things if you don't like the way it's operating. The thing that just strikes me is that, voting is a right, okay, you got to register to vote. And we're putting so much emphasis on having an ID and all these things. But then when it comes to gun ownership, which we also say is a right, but not much of a necessity in terms of voting, we get all of this apprehension about being registered, having a gun, and having an ID to have a gun. I mean, why? I mean, that's just confusing to me. And, why so much emphasis on voting and having to have an ID? And but then when it comes to gun owning, the ability to kill somebody with a gun and so forth, we're so resistant when it comes to that.
Bill, you're laughing. What's that about?
So, I mean, Will, and I love you to death, brother, but and I hate to categorize people or put people in boxes, but
you do it all the time.
But because guns are inanimate, it's the fool behind the gun, and I can't think for any way other than some elderly. I think we could figure out a way to make sure that they got some proper ID, but anybody under 50 should have an ID. I mean, this is just basic, fundamental living and how you have order in your life. I mean, I just can't understand it. And then you're going to equate this with gun control and having people having a weapon. So your gun, the Second Amendment is more powerful than the vote. So you just get all confused, and you don't even understand the difference. And what makes me so sad, those people that died in Connecticut, those young folks, and God doggone, I bless their parents and pray for them every day. But black children from 2 to 4 to 10 are dying every day, and with guns and knives and with words now that we're talking about today. And Will, and we just don't say nothing really about it. We don't talk about it, and that's why the general population just look at us as we're inessential. There's nothing to us because we don't stand for anything. We take anything. We let these hood rats do everything. We let these people go out here and kill each other. Over the past 20 years, 265,000 black people have died on our streets. And then for you to say that the gun is doing it, no, man, it's people. And there's too many people in our community that's doing it, and we don't say a doggone thing.
Bill, let Carol react to something that you said about the gun laws being, Second Amendment being more important than the voter law. Carol.
I'm baffled because it is the vote that will determine what kinds of laws are enacted. So if people aren't there to vote and to determine who is going to represent them in Congress and in the Senate, then
all of you guys just said we're not being represented by these people.
But
so what difference does it make?
If more people vote, or if the vote is extended to include those disabled people,
if you're not smart enough to get an ID, you shouldn't be voting.
It's not about smart all the time.
If you don't have enough energy and respect for yourself and for that precious right to vote, that you can't get a picture ID, then you're not smart enough to vote, in my opinion.
Okay, Carol, respond.
Okay, so you're discounting people who are elderly who might not have the ability. What about people who are disabled and cannot get to a place to get the ID? There are all kinds of reasons why people don't have IDs, and to discount them and equate them with worthlessness in terms of the system mystifies me.
And the state has put in a lot of money on a phantom issue. There aren't a ton of people imitating somebody else when they go to the polls, and the lawmakers know that. But that didn't stop them. A certain party here in Virginia, facts mean nothing to them when they have an agenda, and this is what happened in this particular case. Mm-hmm. Secondly, yes, people are holding guns kill people, but if they didn't have the gun, they wouldn't be as likely to inflict as much damage or to kill as many people. Earlier this week, there was an incident on some college campus in Texas.
In Texas, yeah,
where somebody stabbed 14 people, but last I read, nobody died from that. Mm-hmm. And we also had a brief within the last week of a 4-year-old getting his hands on a gun and killing one of his older relatives.
And right now, the campus at North Carolina A&T State University is in lockdown. There's someone walking around campus with a shotgun. And so thousands of students and teachers are locked down in their classrooms while they try to resolve that situation.
Yeah, very serious. And again, all I said was, if you have to be registered to vote and have an ID, what's the problem with being registered to own a gun and have an ID? Because I've never seen anybody kill somebody with a hanging chad or a ballot. I've never seen that happen. I don't know if we've got that on record where somebody's killed somebody with a voting ballot. So that's all. That's all I said. I don't know why you went off on that tangent about
I didn't go off on
who
no tangent. More black
kills.
people are dying from diseases that are sexually generated than probably from guns. So it doesn't matter where the piece of instrumentation that's doing it. You're just missing the whole point. The people are not able to vote because they don't have the ID. And I'm not talking about handicapped people. My wife had MS and died from it. So I have no more empathy than people can get up. But I tell you what, she had an ID. She had a driver's license. She kept herself busy. Her family made sure. Her church insisted. That's where our family communal breakdown is coming from. Then our churches and our communities and our sororities and the Deltas and the Links and all these people should get out there and make sure that all our people have some ID. And that's the problem.
And I agree with you on that, Bill. And it's going to be, I think, our job as communicators to make sure that people know if they don't have one, how to get one.
There you go.
There are traveling mobile vans that the DMV has to publicize when they're actually in particular areas for individuals who have a hard time maybe getting to a DMV office across their locality.
Okay, we will take care of that. If you're just joining us, we're talking with the Another View Roundtable with Roger Chesley with the Virginian-Pilot, Carol Pretlow of Norfolk State University, community activist Bill Thomas, and journalist and author Will LaVeist. And also want to let you know that John Skeeters of Newsom, Virginia, received our tickets for the Maya Angelou presentation.
Right,
So congratulations to John.
Congratulations.
Okay, Dr. Ben Carson made a comment on Fox News where he said, and I quote, "My thoughts are that marriage is between a man and a woman. It's a well-established fundamental pillar of society, and no group, be they gays, be they NAMBLA, be they people who believe in bestiality, it doesn't matter what they are, they don't get to change the definition." Lots of backlash about that. He was scheduled to be the guest speaker at Johns Hopkins University for commencement, and students started talking about asking him not to be. Last night, he wrote a letter to Dean Rothman, the dean of the medical facility at Johns Hopkins Medicine. He said, "Given all the national media surrounding my statements as to my belief in traditional marriage, I believe it would be in the best interest of the students for me to voluntarily withdraw as your commencement speaker this year. My presence is likely to distract from the true celebratory nature of the day." And he says, "Someday in the future, it is my hope and prayer that the emphasis on political correctness will decrease and we will start emphasizing rational discussion of differences so that we can actually resolve problems and chart a course that is inclusive of everyone." Will?
I don't think he should have stepped down.
Okay.
I mean, I think, I wrote about this on my blog on urbanfaith.com. I don't think he should have stepped down. I think that he should have clarified and given a rational argument regarding his position. The problem is mentioning bestiality and pedophilia. I mean, what are you talking about? And what was so disappointing for me to him is that as a Christian, as a scientist, as an academic, I expect, and he's well trained in how to put together a reasoned argument and say, this is my position, here are the facts, here's the reason why I feel this. And his comment just went off into the same stratosphere that we often hear Bill Thomas going off in, other politicians, Roger here with his column. It just went off into the stratosphere, just throwing out all of these red herrings. And it's like, come on, what are you talking about? Let's put down a rational position on this and define it, because that's something that's very much missing from the public discourse in my mind, is a Christian view why you feel this way that also takes into consideration a separation of church and state, also recognizes that this country is full of people who are not Christians and who are citizens and taxpayers and deserve protection from their government. I was expecting him to be able to put down a real clear position, and he failed.
He stepped in. Roger.
Don't be jealous, Will, because you're not out front on Hampton Road section. So that's the first point. And secondly, I do agree with you on this point. For somebody to be that educated, physician, chief surgeon, somebody to be that well taught, he came off sounding just very ignorant about the issues affecting gays today. Now, you can disagree with gay marriage, but you don't have to devolve into this to all these negative traits that you aspire to somebody gay. And you often wonder, well, do you know anybody gay?
Yeah, it was very, very interesting that he decided to go off on the tangent of NAMBLA, which is pedophilia, and
he sounded extremely homophobic,
Exactly.
and that it was very disconcerting to me. I mean, again, you can be against gay marriage. I'm not. I'm for it, but you can be against it and not be anti, so homophobic. So I think almost just visceral hatred of somebody who's gay, and I think that's what came across more than anything else.
Well, Bill, do you have a response?
No, I think I agree with Will. He should have, you spoon it out, you take it. He should have stood right up there and gave his speech at the commencement or whatever he's going to do at Johns Hopkins. But he keeps coming to reality that these liberals and these liberal institutions and all of this stuff, that anything doesn't matter, right isn't right, and wrong isn't wrong, up isn't up, and down isn't down. The fact is, I do believe that he did go too far. I think he just made his basic argument, as Roger has said. I do not agree that marriage is defined by anything outside of a man and a woman getting a union together. Now, if you want to have some kind of agreements or things like that to share the taxes or get your fair worth of your value, your assets, I am totally for that. But I guess the basic issue is, the real fight is, some folks want to make marriage between others than a man and a woman. And I think that is a discussion that should be had, and he should have the freedom to talk about that without being called all these names or thought of any differently than who he really is. Just a great, really smart guy who saved a lot of lives, who lives his life in dignity, and is trying to make a difference in America. When we crowd people out like him from the political process by just making some remarks on TV or radio, wherever you make this thing, he'll learn that he can't do that anymore. But when we crowd out people as well connected and as smart and as decent as this man, our political process is just going to go down the drain.
Roger?
Well, I think one of the issues, though, is that ever since he made the speech at the National Prayer Breakfast, and some conservatives are swooning over him now, he's now being looked at more seriously in a political realm by many people that he wasn't before. And so now, he's going to get asked his viewpoints, and he's going to get grilled by the media, and that's part of the process.
I understand.
And so, he's got to come up with, this is what he's thinking. Some people are going to say, is that really the type of leader that you want to be following? And I think maybe he just wasn't ready for prime time yet.
Legitimate point.
Okay.
And I also wanted to add that I think that you can, as Bill stated, believe as I do, that marriage is between a man and a woman. You can have that position and also say that I understand that, people do not agree with me. So because you are open to something being allowed does not mean that you are for it. I mean, we are in a society where, for example, as a Christian, divorce is clearly stated in the Bible that is not something that God wants. But we have a society where we allow divorces to happen. Does that mean that I'm going to carry out a sign outside saying, keep divorce, let's get all the... No. But you have to understand, we live in a society where you have different people, different faiths, different beliefs, and they all deserve protection from their government.
Okay. April 20th, 1989, there was a white female who was brutally raped in Central Park, New York City. Kim Burns has a brand new documentary coming out on Tuesday night on WHRO TV 15 called The Central Park 5. And last night we actually had a screening of the documentary at Hampton University. So a shout out to Hampton University, and it was a wonderful, wonderful discussion. Let's listen to a clip from the documentary and we'll talk about it on the other side.
New York in the late 1980s was a completely schizophrenic, divided city.
New York's now the capital of racial violence.
If I had more bullets, I would have shot them all again and again.
Criminality, gang wars, drug wars. We were supposed to be afraid. It would have been irrational not to be afraid.
Off with the camera, man!
Last night, a woman jogger was found unconscious and partially clothed in Central Park. She was beaten and sexually assaulted.
A woman jogging in Central Park. Central Park was holy. It was the crime of the century.
The police controlled the story. They created the story.
They seized on the fears of the people, wilding the bestial characterization of the black man.
There's no DNA match whatsoever to any of these boys.
I was going nuts. No blood on the kids. Nobody could identify them, but if they confessed, and that was that.
A lot of people didn't do their jobs. Reporters, police, prosecutors, defense lawyers. This was institutional protectionism.
A lot of people didn't do their jobs, they say. This was 5 African-American and Latino boys, 4 of them were 14 years old, one was 16 years old, and they were coerced into confessing to this crime, and they actually spent jail time. Well, you were living in New York.
Yeah,
at that
I was
time.
living in New York, so I lived through this. I had gotten out of college and gone back, but this case very much resonated with all of us who've grown up in the cities, because that was what our parents, warned us about what could happen, and that was the biggest nightmare. So it was very volatile. I think a big piece of this, I wasn't at the event last night, but I wonder it came on the heels of the Tawana Brawley case as well. And so I think that played into it too. The Tawana Brawley case, being a young woman who accused wrongfully of police officer
of raping her,
and Al Sharpton was very much involved in that. Lawyers got disbarred. And so I think that played into it some as well, that there was a segment of the community that wanted, here's this case that puts that one to rest, and it's sort of this tit for tat, and this is what really is the problem here. And it's very sad. I've been talking a lot about the systemic racism that we deal with, and that we still need to deal. And this is a clear case of that, of how, in the media being a huge part of it. And to that point, this is that case, and what I saw happening was in the media was one of the things that really pushed me to really leave New York, go to grad school, and go into journalism, and to try to make a difference, because it's huge. It's huge the way that happened.
Can you talk about the difference between the way the black press covered this story versus mainstream press?
From what I remember, it was very much like with the argument of, where's the evidence on the side of the black press? Where's the evidence? Where's the proof? You're railroading our children again. People, again, black people have very much been victimized in their own community by young black males. So that's not new for us, but we want justice to be served properly. Let's see the evidence. Let's see it play out properly. And the white media is very much, a mob mentality of running with your perception of how you think things are. And we see that time and time again. This is why you saw the rhetoric, the wolf pack name, wilding, all of these things. It sells papers. It gets people all riled up. In New York, that's not very difficult to do. New York is already very segregated in terms of race and class and all of those issues, so it's not hard to do.
Carol, in the film, and you were there at the screening last night, the Mayor Koch was very, and Cuomo for that matter, he was governor at the time, but they were not about calming the situation, but they also espoused the rhetoric of these kids are animals and and so forth.
Because their political base was in the European American community, so they were going to, if they had said, well, okay, calm down everybody, let's be totally objective, let's look at the police department and let's look at this holistically, because if you capture the wrong people, the right people that you should have been looking for are going scot-free. I think they were looking at it politically instead of looking at it from the good of the community itself, and their base was white.
Roger, were you surprised that the parents were kept away, were as ineffectual as they turned out to be in terms of being able to shield their young teenagers?
I'm not surprised, because I think you have to have some understanding of the criminal justice system. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people, if you're not really up close to it, if you don't see it day to day, you think that the police are always going to be saying the right thing. Now, one of the things I didn't quite understand during the filming is, and I kept coming back to, why weren't there lawyers there almost from the start? Why were the kids allowed to be interviewed without any attorney present? And if the parents didn't just know or didn't understand the ramifications of not getting somebody like that in there with them, so there would be, basically to tell the kids, okay, you've said your piece, stop talking now. You talk to me. And now, because, and I will tell you from covering the police beat in Detroit before and having a good relationship with the homicide inspector there, they want the confession. They'll take whatever evidence and whatever evidence you get from the scene, but boy, they really want that confession because they know how that's going to play to a jury. And they are allowed to use certain techniques to try to get it, short of beating people.
The other thing too is that unfortunately within the black community, a lot of times police are something to be feared,
Exactly.
where in the mainstream community, a lot of times police are your friend. They are your protector. And I wonder if the adults the parents, it was very stark in the documentary that the parents were either asked to leave the room and the kids were left there by themselves, or if a parent was present, the police convinced even the parents to just tell the kids, just say what they want so we can get out of here. And that was the reaction.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, a lot of people in the African American community are not aware of the inner dynamics. That is, we're taught, the police are there to protect the community, but we're not looking at it from the perspective like, wait, did they read you your rights? And this means from start one, instead of answering any question, say, I want my attorney. I want someone that represents me, and I don't want you to select the attorney. I want to choose.
These kids were good kids.
Yeah.
They weren't in trouble before, and they did not know each other, which I thought was interesting. Will, did that come out as you were covering? Do you remember?
When I went back then, I don't remember that aspect of it, that they didn't know each other, but I remember it just being such a typical situation that, again, growing up as a young black male in New York, that could happen at any moment. And the thing that I find so disturbing too is, again, going back to the press, is it's the press's role to really explore those kinds of things of, okay, are they being read their rights properly? Is everything going according to the law? And then the press just jumps on that bandwagon, that fever, and it just kind of shows you that, journalists are human as well. And a lot of times, though, we're trained and taught to be able to look at both sides. We start falling back on that cultural training from all the way back. And it takes courageous people like Ken Burns and his daughter and his son-in-law that have looked at this and said, no, this is not right. This is not right, and that's what is missing. And I hope that, those of us who are in positions of power, whether we be white or black or whatever ethnic or racial group, that you would be able to say, you know what, no, this is not right. And, if our country is going to be what it should be, we've got to be able to protect people, even though they may not look like me, they may not be from my class.
Bill, do you remember this case, and how did it resonate here in the Hampton Roads area? Were you here in '89? Bill? Hello, is Bill still there?
No, I'm here.
Oh.
No, I'm here. No, I was just thinking a bit. I was trying to think back what year Greek Fest was. Had been right around that.
I think it was 89.
Yeah,
right.
I think it was around the same time.
So the combination of those two things actually just frightened a parent with young boys to death. I mean, it's. I will never forget that Tawana Bailey. The whole Brawley issue and all those things were kind of in that same time period, and it feeds on each other, I guess. But again, and I hate to keep going back and beating this not a dead horse, it is a live horse, until we can get all of our children, white, black, whoever, Jewish or whatever, to look like and act like America, and where our children don't seem to be too threatening. At that same period, my two kids were going out to Virginia Beach, and they were walking to the Cavalier Hotel out there, and they got stopped and picked up by the police. They were doing absolutely nothing, and so it's just a fear that somehow we're going to try to figure out how to do it. That is institutionalized racism. It's hurtful, it's painful, and it doesn't matter if you're a good kid or not. If you're a young black male, unfortunately in America today, your life and your freedom is severely restricted.
One of the things that came up in the discussion last night was the stop and frisk law that is in New York City now. And to your point, Bill, about being young black men, now the mayor will tell you, Bloomberg, that crime is down. They had the stats to say that murder rate is way down in New York. I think they quoted 500 last year compared to thousands before. But yet these are young African American and Latino men, boys, who are usually being stopped, Roger.
Right, and that was one of the things that Wayne Dawkins said yesterday about that. And you have to know that these things come at a cost. So you might be going after some people who are doing bad, but if you're rounding up everybody, including people, which is part of the problem with driving while black and that whole issue, is that you also get a certain segment. They're going to say, hey, I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. You had no right to pull me over. You had no right to search my pockets. And you found nothing, and now you've made an enemy, so to speak, and you've hardened certain hearts that might have been, at least not anti-police or not anti-prosecutors, but now you're saying, hey, I might not have thought that before that happened to me.
So here's a question I asked last night, and I want to get a response from each of you. We got about 4 minutes left. Could the Central Park 5 happen again in 2013?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You still have the same conditions that still exist. You still have people that believe what they believe about black males. You still have people who will react similarly. We were just talking about Rick Ross. We were just, these things, so much of what we are talking about now is not new. So unless you begin to address what are the factors as to why the crime exists in the black and brown communities and realize that it's not genetic, that there's something going on in the system, as Bill just mentioned, as we've been talking about, systemic and institutional racism that creates the crime. Now you go in, you do a stop and frisk because of where the crime is, and then the results is who are you going to end up picking up? So if you're not going to get to the root of what the cause of the problem is, then sure, this is going to happen again.
Bill, you want to respond?
No, I agree. I guess what we do, we have to look in the mirror, though, is because far too many of our young African-American guys and now girls are just out of control, wilding in the streets, and they create this panic and fear. The part that discourages me the most and disappoints me the most, they scare me.
You're not the first person that has said that, Bill. There were other people who also talked about that fear. But Roger, I want to ask you, from a journalist perspective, do you think that we would allow that to go on the way that the press kind of jumped on that bandwagon without questioning?
I think it can happen. You're only as good as the ability of the journalists that are examining the case, and so that it can happen. And we're stressed as other industries are now. We have fewer people out there to actually report on these things. So you have to have healthy skepticism about everything. I would like to think it would not as easily happen today as it did back in 1989, that we know more things now, that we've seen what happened to these young men. But could it happen again? Certainly.
Carol, from a political perspective?
Yeah, I think it could happen again, but my hope would be that we have more cohesive organizations. We have the NACP, the Urban League, and others who would say, wait a minute, let's galvanize, let's get together, let's develop a consensus here, and let's explore. And because these organizations have such strength and power, as well as Facebook and Twitter and all of those, then I think there is hope that it wouldn't be to the extent that it was.
Well, they had marching in the street. But go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, there was one other thing, and I have to compliment Will on this because he brought to my attention the house that I live in. Another documentary just about the futility of the drug war, and you see where so many of us are behind bars. even though we use drugs and sell drugs about the same proportion as other ethnicities, but we're so much more a part of the criminal justice system, all out of disproportion to our numbers in society.
And that's going to have to be the last word for today because we're just about out of time. Just want to give you a quick update from North Carolina A&T State University. The lockdown has been lifted and classes will resume at 2 p.m. So that is a very, very positive thing, and we are happy about that. Thank you so much, Roundtable. Thank you, Bill. We appreciate it, and we will be right back.
This is Irony Singleton. I've had the great pleasure in my short Hollywood career to have worked on The Blind Side, An Amish Murder with Neve Campbell, and of course, The Walking Dead. And you're listening to Another View on 89.5 FM.
Thank you so much. Time now for things to view and do in Hampton Roads.
You will be my Saturday love.
The Old Dominion University is holding a poetry slam to celebrate National Library Week. It's Tuesday, April 16th from 5 until 7:30 at the Learning Commons at Perry Library on the Norfolk campus. Visit odu.edu to find out more. The Friends of Women's Studies at ODU hosts its annual dinner on Wednesday, April 17th at 6 at the Webb Center. This year's speaker is Echo Entrepreneur and Peabody Award winner Majora Carter. Visit WMST at odu.edu for more information. You're invited to attend the Hampton Roads Power to End Stroke Jazz Brunch on Saturday, April 20th from 10 until 2 at Norfolk State University's Dozier Dining Hall. It's free. WHRV's very own Jay Sennett and his trio will perform. Call 804-965-6578 to register for this free event. The Urban League of Hampton Roads holds its 23rd annual Whitney M. Young Senior Awards Dinner on Thursday, April 25th at 6 p.m. at the Chesapeake Conference Center. Call 627-0864 for ticket information. The York, James City, Williamsburg NAACP holds its 34th annual Life Membership Banquet on Saturday, April 27th at 5 at the Colonial Williamsburg Lodge. Tickets are available. Call 757-229-3113 for details. And the Norfolk section of the National Council of Negro Women Incorporated is accepting applications for the 2013 Janus House Achievement Awards. Applicants must submit a minimum 250-word essay on the topic, How Will I Continue the Legacy of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune? The deadline to apply is May 2nd. Call 574-3802 for an application packet. These and other events are available on our website, anotherviewradio.org. You can download the podcast of your favorite AV show, sign up for our eView newsletter, or drop us a note to let us know how we're doing. Thank you so much for joining us today. For producer Lisa Godley, audio engineer Perry Smith, Danielle Jenkins, who answered our phones, I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Have a fabulous weekend, and let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.